final European Talent Cup race of the weekend is next. It's a double bill for the ETC riders with a crucial 50 points up for grabs this weekend. 25 are next up for grabs, so take your seats at home or at the side of the circuit because you don't want to miss it as ETC continues to spring a surprise in 2025. Over in race 1, we had Ramadipa securing victory. And well, maybe something that we didn't predict before this weekend once more. But the Magny-Cours circuit continuing to show that there's some great racing to be shown. 8 lefts, 9 rights, and plenty of overtaking opportunities. Here is technical layout circuit. 9 laps of racing are ahead. Race 1 though, as we look back earlier on this morning, it was dry conditions for the start. There was a delayed start and an incident at turn 5 on the opening lap. So a couple of riders caught up in the incident. Luckily, all of them eventually walking away. So the racing continues at the front as Ramadipa powered away with Bahosa in chase. Of course, the 69 had long lap penalties to complete, 2 of them in fact, as Alvaro Lucas looked down the inside on the opening couple of laps. Of course, Alvaro Lucas, key contender so far this year, as is Cano, and we had some fallers throughout race 1. As your championship leader, Alex Longarella, looked to be in charge. He soon got his way to the front and involved in the podium fight. The 45 was looking to add to his victory, but soon the 7 hit the front. Cano joined on in P4. He had to start down the field outside of the top 20, but soon Cano, he became a key contender. Perfect conditions for racing as the race continued. It was full slicks for everyone on the grid. Alvaro Lucas though getting tight with the championship leader Longarella down the inside. Longarella went at turn 15. With Lucas continuing to look like the rider on the move. It was a freeway fight soon at the front, but in classic European Talent Cup fashion, it was the riders bunching up in the front group. 9-10 riders fighting away for victory. Everything was to play for. Everything was to be decided. Bahosa looking strong on the 69. He was in the front group all the way throughout the race while Ramadipa continued to work away quietly, continuing to put in good laps in the front group and remain near the podium fight, ready to pounce if any opportunity arose. And well, that opportunity came here as Ramadipa made his way through on Lucas. Cano lost the front and then made his way to the front of the middle of the track and took out Longarella. It was Ramadipa who took victory by just 98 thousandths of a second in race 1. As race 2 begins to build for the ETC field, there's plenty to look out for, there's plenty to watch. The conditions have completely changed from this morning. And well, we spoke about race 1 being declared a wet race, but everyone still opted to use the slick tyres. Now here today, in this afternoon, it could be a completely different story. Of course, some key contenders still start further down the order and still have a lot of work to do. And with the different conditions, you have to say for the likes of Carlos Cano, it's going to be even more of a challenge than race 1.
It is going to be a big challenge for Carlos Cano. He starts from 27th in race 2. The 9th row of the grid still. We saw in race 1, despite it being a short and 9-lap race, he was still able to get at the front when everyone was running slick tyres. It looks like from our commentary box, and on the track feed we can see here, it's still wet. So everyone, unless it dries up magically in the next few minutes, will be on wet tyres. That adds another dimension to Cano's race. He's shown he's got the pace to fight his way to the front already, and I'm sure he'll believe he can in this race, but with the rain, with the wet track, it's just an extra challenge to think of for him.
Yeah, another challenge to think about, another dimension to the race, as you mentioned. But the good thing is, if it does start to dry up at any point, but it still has hoods out on the grid, so I don't think that's going to be a case. But even if it did, the Talent Cup machines, they are lower power CC machines. They are just 250s, meaning that it would take a lot longer to overheat a tyre on the European Talent Cup bikes because there's less weight of the bike and the rider than what it would on, for example, a Moto2 machine. So perhaps track drying isn't going to be as much of a concern, but the ETC grid, nonetheless, it's going to be a super interesting fight. And you can hear them now leaving pit lane for their sight and laps. And well, yet again, like race 1, super important sighting laps.
For exactly the same reasons on the different end of the scale this time. Because the track is wet, they'll run the wet tyres at this point. They'll want to understand track conditions. They'll want to understand where the grip is and where they can push harder. We've seen already throughout the day that it's very easy to make a mistake. Turn 5, turn 13 seem to be the trickiest corners in these conditions. So they'll want to understand where and how much they can push in these conditions. They'll have multiple cycling laps, I believe. The pit lane was open for 10 minutes. So they'll be able to do 2 or 3, although we do see some going straight to the grid.
Yes, some returning to the pits for another lap, some go straight to the grid. Personal preference yet again. I mean, some of these riders, even if it's a case that you maybe want 1 or 2 more laps, if it feels like you have to make a lot of changes on your bike, you might just want to get back to the grid ASAP and get those changes done. Because the last thing you want is your team to be rushing about and under pressure, stressed, just before a race start.
Exactly. If you can keep everyone in the team calm while you're navigating these challenging conditions, everything will be working better for that group.
Yeah, everything just works a little bit easier and more seamless, I guess you could say. But of course, a lot to look out for in this one. Can Ramadippa make it 2 for 2 this weekend? But Gabbarini, of course, goes from pole position on the 81. And well, we've seen in race 1, the 81 rider from pole was able to make a pretty good start and keep with the front group.
He was, yeah, and he'll be hoping he can repeat that in race 2. Again, different conditions, it changes everything. But perhaps this is an opportunity for Gabbarini to convert that pole into a top 5 or a top 10 result.
Yeah, if he could get some more points on the board. He's already up to P14 in the championship at the moment, so it has been a pretty successful weekend, I think, to put it lightly. I think he's going to leave this weekend with some extra confidence. He's showed his pace, he's shown, especially over 1 lap, he showed his pace, because yesterday it was near perfect conditions for track running.
It was, yeah, it was very warm yesterday, not a cloud in the sky. It's exactly the conditions everyone would have wanted when they come here. Obviously, race 2 will be different for him and for everyone on the grid as we see the race 1 winner.
Yeah, the race 1 winner, Ramadippa now. 1 win, 2 podiums, 3rd in the championship now. 3rd in the championship already at this point in the season. If Ramadippa now can string 2 or 3 results in a row, heading in for leaving this round and heading into Aragon, could this make Ramadippa a potential championship contender this year?
It looks like he's coming into form at the right time as well. You come into form around the halfway stage of the season. The points gap isn't too big that you can't make it up, but it's not insurmountable either. He's in contention, especially if he gets another podium or a win in race 2, or links up a few podiums later on in the season.
Yes, certainly. If you can link up a couple of results, as you said, it just builds momentum, builds and environment within the team. The momentum almost builds with your mechanics, your crew chief, everyone in the team. Just makes life a little bit easier whenever you're getting the results. But you can just see as well, the 45 of Alex Longarella, he'll be hoping for a good result because he crashed out obviously in race 1, but absolutely nothing he could have done to avoid Cano. It was just one of those things. It was a real racing incident. Yeah,
Cano made a great save, but unfortunately that put him right in the path of Longarella, and both of them crashed out. So a real shame for both of them because they had fantastic races until that point. A chance for Longarella to right the wrongs of race 1 though.
Yes, certainly, and he was within the pace, and you almost have to wonder if he got to the front of the field this time around, if he would try to push on the pace. Although it is tricky conditions, it could get him out of that tricky zone when you're within the front group. There's 5, 6, 7 riders all in that leads group and battling away, and that's where mistakes can happen, or another rider's mistakes can trip you up.
These are sort of conditions where you're more likely to be able to build a gap to your rivals.
As now we see Cano continuing his sighting lap, so trying to get as much experience, I think it's fair to say, in these wet conditions, because, well, the number 1, he needs some big points.
He does need some big points. He obviously lost out on a huge chunk in race 1 after the crash. Again, starting from the 9th row. This time it's 27th because obviously Cano was disqualified from qualifying. Remy Samjuan did set a time but was given a back of the grid start for race 1, which is why there's been a shuffle there. So he's got a lot of work to do in this race.
And well, Borelli now, 1 podium, of course, so far this season, but another rider who's really came to the front this round here at Magny-Cours, really enjoying his time on the circuit and adapting to the track really well.
Yeah, the number 7 has adapted really well, as you said. Really quick in qualifying, really quick in race 1 this morning. We'll see how he gets on in the wet.
Yeah, well, in the wet conditions, and it's going to be interesting to see what the weather does. Although it's a wet track, if it gets heavier, we could see maybe 1 or 2 puddles starting to form, which starts to get really tricky on these European Talent Cup bikes, because on the advantage that whenever the track starts to dry, they don't overheat their tires too much. Then comes the disadvantage over whenever it's super wet, you have less grip from your wet tires because they're a much smaller tire than what you would have in something like the Moto2 class.
Exactly. It does look like, I mean, from our side, we can't hear any rain falling on the camera or on the umbrellas at the track, so it looks like the rain has perhaps eased off a bit. The track will still be wet, there's no doubt about that. It rained really heavily earlier, as anyone watching the previous race saw. Umbrellas seem to be down, although hoods up, so maybe just a little bit of rain in the air still.
Yeah, well, some young fans watching the action unfold this weekend, and who knows, could be an ETC talent of the future. This championship attracts so much talent to each weekend, to each season, and it gets to the point where we need to split the groups in qualifying as well. There's just so many riders, and then of course have a last chance race to decide the final couple of spots on the grid.
Exactly, and the 2 riders that came through this morning's last chance race were Matthias Tamburini, who starts 29th, and Carmen Tinez, who starts 30th. That race was the first of the day to be affected by rain. Wasn't too bad, it was lighter than this, it was still mostly dry, but they have had a bit of experience in the rain at this circuit.
Yeah, they certainly have, and well, 9 laps as well being the distance. The last chance race, of course, they were using slick tires on it, so a different challenge this time around, but the shortened race format, like we've seen in race 1, could yet again play into their advantage because they have to get to work straight away. And, well, as you said, already a little bit of experience in tricky conditions this weekend.
It might come into their mind that they know what the track is like when it's not completely wet but not completely dry. It might give them a slight advantage, it might not. It's, as we've said so many times today, rain levels things out.
Yeah, and well, this being the ETC is unpredictable as ever. The ETC Championship, yet again, proven that anything can happen. And some people maybe going into this year expected Carlos Cano to constantly be dominating races, but through some errors of his own and some errors not of his own, it's not necessarily been that case. And well, we came into this weekend with Longarella looking like the person to beat in terms of the championship, and ETC springing up a surprise as always.
Yeah, for Cano, as soon as you put the number 1 on your bike, you become the rider that everyone wants to beat. So he is obviously facing a lot of competition this year to retain that title.
Well, unsurprisingly, it is declared a wet race. I'm sure that's not a surprise to anyone on the grid or watching track side, or of course anyone watching at home. But plenty to look out for in this one. Of course, as we mentioned, with the Magny-Cours circuit, tricky layout for riders to learn this weekend, especially for the ETC riders. The least amount of experienced riders are usually in ETC. It's their first stepping stone in the JuniorGP paddock as they continue on the road to MotoGP. But with that, it becomes really, you get to see who's able to adapt to new circuits the quickest, and certainly we've seen that this weekend in the first couple of rows.
You have, yeah. Adapting to a new circuit is obviously an important part of being a racer, and you can see who has adapted quickly. As you said, a circuit that is tricky. There's very slow corners, there's very fast corners, there's long straights that have kinks in them but really are straights. The longest official straight is 700 meters long, but the slipstream does play a big impact, and the run into turn 5, especially on lap 1, will be hugely important, as we saw in race 1.
Yeah, as we saw in race 1, it was super important, and turn 5, we mentioned it as well, being a slight of a pinch point, and we did see an incident there on lap 1 last time around. So hopefully nothing like that this time around. Obviously, completely new challenge, being a race start here at Magny-Cours, and I don't think we should be too far away from getting going. Of course, it will be Gabarini on pole position. So the Italians really enjoying the wet this weekend in general, actually. Multiple Italians coming to the front of the order as Evan Boxberger now sits on the grid. He looks focused and, well, has an umbrella over him just to stop any rain from hitting his helmet. But just 3 minutes to go until we head out on the warm-up lap. But Evan Boxberger from P12 inside the points, obviously, if he was to finish 12th. But I think from P12, you'll be aiming towards the top 10, definitely, for Boxberger.
I think he will be as well. It's a circuit he probably knows quite well from, obviously, being a French rider. Magny-Cours is one of the bigger circuits in the country, so I imagine he's ridden here quite a few times, and it's a circuit where rain comes out of nowhere, so he's probably ridden here in the rain as well.
And of course, any advantage that you can gain over any of your rivals in this class could be the difference from P1 to P9, as we've seen in race 1. Big group battles yet again, and well, with tricky wet conditions, it's going to be interesting to see if anyone is able to break away. We have seen it in other races so far today in the wet conditions that one or two riders are able to break away from the pack and just find that extra step in the rain. So it's going to be interesting to see even the likes of Cano, who, let's not forget, he was disqualified from qualifying yesterday and then obviously had the crash in race 1. 0 points so far to his name. It's a 50-point weekend in the ETC. 25 still remain up for grabs. And you have to say it's going to be an important first lap. A real risk versus reward first lap of how much you attack and how much you just think, maybe I'll wait one or two corners because that looks a bit risky.
What we've seen so far in the last couple of races is riders at the front who got a great start were able to build up a lead very quickly, 3-4 seconds after the first lap. Incredible laps. But for Cano, it's a completely different story, because if he's built up a 4-second lead after the first couple of laps, then he's obviously had an incredible start.
So, of course, ETC race 2 coming up. So the starting grid now for the second race of the weekend. Gabarini on pole position from Ramadipa. Can he make it from two this weekend? Bahosa on the front row. Alvaro Lucas head off Borelli and TV on row 2 as Rustangi, Longarella and Gutierrez start on row 3. Now the 26, 12 and 36 of Boxberger start on row 4 ahead of Borg, Rodriguez and Galan on row 5. Mariolanda on the 27 starts ahead of San Juan and Crackwell as Karpushin, Ethan Sparks and Sanchez start on row 7. Now the 51, the 10 and the 94 of Osorio start on row 8 as Beluzio and Cano start from row 9. Savino, Tamburini and TF start on row 10. That rounds out your 30 riders taking the start. Well, plenty to look out for, plenty to watch here in the ETC field as we head out on our warm-up lap. 9 laps of racing is ahead of us here at Magny-Cours. Plenty to watch, plenty to look out for, and plenty of championship points up for grabs. The stakes are high, and 9 laps of racing, still plenty of time to make your way through the field and make some valuable moves.
We saw in race 1, albeit in the dry, but moving up through the field fairly quickly as possible. Might be a slightly different story in race 2 due to the conditions. Maybe it takes Cano a couple more laps if he's able to move up to the podium positions like he did in race 1. But I suspect he'll still be looking to do that fairly quickly in this race.
Yeah, well, of course, if he never got the disqualification in qualifying, we could be speaking about a completely different race because he would have started pretty much at the front of the field. Of course, Cano, he's always been good over 1 lap so far this season. So we've seen, obviously, pole sitter at Jerez, and should have been a good result once again here at Magny-Cours. But starting further down the order, a brand new challenge into the mix as well. And Alex Longarella, now, although not super far down the order, it's still within the middle pack, still within the danger zone on this first lap.
Yeah, P8 for Longarella, the middle of the 3rd row. Crucial to get a good launch off the line. But as you said, in the middle of the pack, you also need to be aware of the riders around you and what they're planning on doing at turn 1, turn 2, turn 3.
So now the field through 9 and 10, and then they'll make their way towards 11 and 12 at the Emilage chicane. And this, of course, being where Cano, well, he pushed a little bit too hard earlier on, but what will we see this time around? The championship standings, of course, Longarella 6 points ahead of Alvaro Lucas. Ramadipa up into P3, Bahosa P4, and well, you can't even see the number 1 of Cano in that top 4 in the standings. Just shows how much 1 or 2 bad results in the ETC can change things up, and well, it's shook up the championship order, and now who knows what we can expect in race 2.
Exactly. Race 1 was obviously very costly for Cano. Just on Fernando Bahosa, he starts from the front row, does not have 2 long lap penalties in this race like he did in race 1, so don't expect him to drop back as he did earlier.
Yeah, exactly. He doesn't have that to worry about. He doesn't have that time to lose as well. But even with losing that time, the 69 was straight on the pace and still within that front group. So keep your eyes on the P3 starter. But Gabarini from pole position. What start will it be this time around? Ramadiba starts from P2. That's your race 1 winner and your championship leader just behind. So the 45 has a perfect marker, you would think, after looking at race 1 results. But now, not too much longer to wait. The European Town Cup looks ready to go, though, ready to race. Alvaro Lucas starting on row 2. What can he do? The red lights are on. And we go racing for race 2 of ETC, and straight away the 81 of Gabarini trying to get a good start, but it is going to be Ramadiba side by side with Bahosa at turn 1. The 69 into the lead, he goes now. Alvaro Lucas up into P4 as well. So your pole sitter back down to it looks to be P6 so far. Longarella, a good start from the 45, up inside the top 5 already. Could this be his race? Could this be his chance to reclaim some championship points and to stretch out that championship lead? The championship lead at the moment is just a 1-digit number. It's 6 points in the lead of the championship is the 45. But now we come down to turn 5 for the first time of asking. Moves will be made. That is a guarantee. Hopefully none of the drama last time out. Obviously, Cano making his way through the field further back down the order. Lucas dropping back down to P4, dropping right behind Longarella. So a good marker for him. Everyone through turn 5 clean this time. A nice clean start for the ETC field.
Absolutely an incredibly clean start. We see the pole sitter just ahead of the number 13. That's Matthias Rostagni getting ahead through the Nürburgring chicane and into the 180-degree headline. A perfect start for Bahosa from the 3rd row, straight into lead, and then built up enough of a gap where the slipstream didn't matter to him on the run into turn 5. He wasn't challenged into the hairpin. Yeah,
it was a good start for him. As now they'll try and stretch their gaps. Gaps sometimes in the wet, you do see them stretch out nice and early on, and that's just when everyone's finding their feet, finding what their pace is going to be this time around. But as you mentioned, good start from Rostagni further down the order as through goes Longarella on the inside of Ramadipa. But Ramadipa, what does he do? What response does he have as they make their way through turn 14 in just a moment's time, almost side by side? The 32 slotting in behind now into turn 15 we go, and out nearly anyway losing it on the brakes. It was Alvaro Lucas. Up the inside he goes. That was move done. It looked like it was going to be a near collision, or at least a near off from Alvaro Lucas, but he's kept everything under control and now into the podium battle.
And chasing down Alex Longarella straight away, although he does still have to defend from the number 32 he just passed. Just to make a note, you've probably seen it on the cameras, it looks like more rain starting to fall, so no worries about the track drying out, but more rain for these riders to contend with.
Yeah, certainly more challenges, and so far on that opening lap, Cano, 13 positions he's made up, so a good start inside the point scoring positions already. Of course, as we mentioned, starting from P27 on the grid, loads of ground to make up. But Ramadipa, your race 1 winner, sits in P4 at the moment. Now, what we see in race 1 from Ramadipa was quite impressive. He sat quite comfortably in that lead group, not making any silly moves until it was really time to attack, and that's when he made the moves count.
He did. He timed his attacks to perfection in race 1. Just on Cano, one of the issues he's going to have is there is already a big gap for...
As we do have a rider down, actually. Sorry about that, Jack. But yeah, rider down on the exit of turn 5, a high side. And well, we have seen that be a tricky corner throughout the day. Not too much grip on offer, and that is Mario Landa down. So the 27 now back up on his feet, but took a heavy hit onto the ground, and disappointing end to his day, you would think.
Yeah, he would have been hoping for a bit more from race 2. Just to go back to what I was saying about Kano, one of the issues he's going to have is that already big gaps forming between the groups. For example, between Ramadipa in 4th and Brody in 5th, it's 2 seconds. It's not insurmountable if he's able to get there quickly, but it is going to be a challenge if he's not able to make the moves fast.
Yeah, certainly. And well, now as we continue on, Ramadipa is losing touch ever so slightly of this front group over the last lap. As we do have Mikey Lou Sanchez as well having a fall. So a crash there for the 55. A disappointing end to any hopes of a strong result anyway. But Alvaro Lucas, P3 at the moment for the 46. The fastest lap of the race comes from your leader, Bahosa. Now a 2:04.407. A solid time this early on. What we see time and time again, the lap times really do build in these sort of conditions. And Longarella, he has a marker in front of him, most importantly. He has a gauge of how hard he can push and how close he wants to follow Bahosa in front.
Bahosa is the first rider to come across any change of conditions because of the rain falling or it starts drying out. So although he's got track position, in a way he's disadvantaged because he doesn't know where he can push. Whereas, as you say, Longarella has a good reference in front of him, and you can see the gap has closed up in the first sector of this lap.
And now heavy on the brakes once more. This is where we've seen the high side earlier on in this one from Mario Landa, but none of the such problems for our leaders, as Kano in this massive lead group further back down the order. About 8 or 9 riders in this group. Kano has managed to get ahead of all of them, and I believe that should be edging towards the top 10. So P11 at the moment for Kano, and now trying to bridge the gap further down the field. As well, the battle continues on at the front. Time screen showing 55 having a fall. Yep, that is also on screen now at turn 9 for him. As looking up the inside is Longarella. Nothing made though this time around. And of course, that was the crash of Mikey Lou Sanchez that we had the graphic of earlier on of the 55. But the front two seem to be just bridging the gap at the moment from Alvaro Lucas, as Kano now enters the top 10. P9 for him at the moment.
Yeah, Kano up to P9, a great comeback ride so far in the early stages, but I'd say the top two just seeming to break away from Alvaro Lucas. Bahosa leading Longarella, but Longarella is visibly quicker on this lap and has been setting purple sectors so far. Purple sector means fastest of anybody, and as you can see, the gap is definitely coming down. He was 2 tenths quicker on that lap.
Yeah, 2 tenths quicker, exactly 2 tenths quicker at that. So with the gap now being 4 tenths, you'd have to say with 6 laps remaining, the battle is on in the ETC race 2. The battle is on for a good result, for 25 championship points. Longarella is going to be hungry for those 25 points. He's been battling all the way throughout the weekend, and then sadly from race 1, no fault of his own, and the mistake from Kano made him drop out of contention. But now flying past down on the back straight as we head towards turn 5 is Longarella. So the 45 back into the lead now, and what can he do at the front? Can he immediately stretch a gap from Bahosa, or is the 69 awaiting something? Has he got something left in his back pocket?
Based on what we saw over the last couple of laps, you would think Longarella would be able to pull a gap. However, Longarella is now in the situation that Bahosa was a couple of laps ago and seeing everything first. So maybe because of that, he was able to take advantage. They just go side by side, not quite through the 180-degree corner. Different lines, obviously different parts of the track, giving different grip levels for these riders.
Yeah, different grip levels all the way around the circuit, and grip, well, proven to be crucial here in this one to get a fast lap in. But Longarella, we're going to wait and see what the time's going to be. It was a first 2 good sectors from the 45 over the line the last time around. Of course, it was 4 tenths in the way of Bahosa, but that all changed down the back straight. A little moment though on the exit of the corner from Longarella. Is that going to allow Bahosa just to show a front wheel? If you can get side by side, as we see Beluzio on the 64 having a crash. So turn 5 for him down at the hairpin. such a tricky corner, both in and out on the wet conditions. But a slight moment there from the 45 of Longarella. You have to wonder, is that just going to calm him down, bring himself, relax himself, and not to make any more mistakes? Because you cannot keep losing the rear like that because if you keep doing that, it is eventually going to bite you.
You can't, but he's wide through turn one. I don't know if he's through.
He's through. So Bahosa now dropping back down. Bahosa up into P1. And it is going to be Longarella dropping back down to P2. He's trying to take a different line. It was the fastest lap of the race, a 2:02.7, but none of that matters if you're going to be running wide the next corner at turn 1. He is going to get slipstream, in the slipstream, tucking in his knees, tucking in his elbows, his shoulders, his head, and through he goes on the 45. Longarella now leads the field once more. It is going to be a two-rider shootout, or of course, if these two continue to battle, it's going to allow Alvaro Lucas to get back into contention in third.
Alvaro Lucas needs these two to battle to bring himself into contention. I've just been looking at the timings for Carlos Cano. He is up to P6, 3 seconds behind Matthias Rostagni with 5 laps to go. Potentially P5 is possible, but then there's a 6-second gap to Ramadipa. That is unlikely to be bridged, I would suspect.
Yeah, a lot of work still to do. It has been a race of just constantly putting in the work, a weekend of putting in the work for Cano, but the front two, no change since that move down the back straight in between turn 4 and turn 5 for them. So Longarella looks like he has stretched a margin, but we did see him make a mistake at turn 1 last time around, and well, you cannot be making mistakes in these conditions, because if you ask for more and more, eventually the track or the bike will bite, and then suddenly in the flash you are down on the deck. A massive look behind as well from Longarella. He's gonna know Bahosa's there. The 69 up the inside, but of course now Longarella has the inside for turn 15, but 69 swoops around the outside, takes the position into the final sector, the high school complex, and now into the final corner. 16-17 on the power once more, and well, it looks like as he runs out onto the curb, slight bit of spinning up out of the final corner, but you would have to say in between turn 3 and 5, down the back straight, that's where he's going to be lining up another move.
Yeah, Longarella in P2 will get a huge slipstream effect down into P5. It does look like Bahosa has pulled out a gap, but it's probably not enough to be able to defend. The sector 3 time from the last lap, Bahosa was 7 tenths quicker than Longarella.
Yeah, super stuff in that final sector. You just seen him close, and well, having a little stretch actually was Longarella, just bringing out his knees, although not the most aerodynamic. He's just trying to make himself last till the end of the race. He doesn't look down the inside this time around. He sits comfortably in second. He looks like he was happy to sit second this time around. Maybe just gauge a little bit more of where he can match Bahosa with, of course, the 69 being so strong in that final sector. Maybe the 45 just wants to take a page out of his book.
Exactly, and they've got enough of a margin to Alvaro Lucas behind where they don't need to be in front and constantly fighting. They can sit first and second in that order if that's what Longarella would like, until he can work out the best place to overtake Bahosa.
A wider line on the entry to the 180 corner. So Longarella, is this going to catapult him? Is this going to give him the slingshot? Of course, a late apex for him. He's definitely closed it up, but it wasn't enough to make a move into MLS. So through the left they go now before they head heavy on the anchors once more into the braking zone over at turn 13. And of course, this is where we've seen Bahosa be so strong. So is this going to be Alex Longarella's chance just to learn a little bit, as still sitting in P4 and a little bit of no man's land at the moment? It is Ramadipa, but Ramadipa take nothing away from him. Winner in race 1, nearly on the podium. He still could be on the podium. It's ETC, anything can happen. These are the challenger races for a championship charge where you need to stay focused with nobody around you.
Exactly. If he, as we said before, if you can't win, you can't finish on the podium, you take what you can get. If P4 is what Ramadipa can get in this race, take it 100%. Still good championship. Oh, he had a massive moment. 2 massive moments coming out of the final chicane. Just able to keep it together.
Yeah, just keeping it together. Losing the rear on the exit of turn 17. And then all the way, as we do see actually, a rider down there on the run to turn 1 that looked like as well. We do have 49 crashing out as well, rider okay. But losing the rear for Ramadipa, as it looks like the leaders side by side once more into turn 5. No move made this time round. Ethan Rodriguez down, so crashing out of this one, the 49. So a shame for him, but Ramadipa staying on. Once he was on the curb as well, he just tried to pick up the throttle, and Rustangi also down. We spoke about how much he was wanting to have a good ride on the number 13. Sadly, that's all came to an end, and now they're getting Scooter back to the paddock as this is going to allow Cano up into P5, as it looks like we do have a red flag. So red flag now appearing out with 3 laps remaining. So that should be 2/3 distance. But of course, as always, we'll wait for official confirmation. But over the line last time around, it was the 69 leading Longarella. 3 tenths, nearly 4 tenths of a second was their margin. As actually it looks like a little bit of celebrations already. I think Mahosa realizes that it's probably him that's going to take the win. And Longarella says he doesn't know. And that's just in the hope that he does manage to win on counting back. But I think it will be Mahosa taking the win in this one. As inside the Snipers team box at the moment, the mechanics just waiting to see the official results here at Magny-Cours. Of course, a dramatic race 2 for the ETC field. And celebrations as they wait in pit lane before they'll make their way into Parc Fermé. And some of the level up MTA riders or crew down there in pit lane as well. So that is confirmation. Red flag, 2/3 distance, no race restart. So the race has been declared. The result of the race is finished. And well, that will be our top 3. So Mahosa winning by nearly 4 tenths of a second over Alex Longarella. Alvaro Lucas, P3 now for him. Another podium here in ETC. Another solid ride. And well, heading into Moosland Aragon, a confidence boosting result you would have to think. Tricky conditions in both races for the ETC field. As you can see, the celebrations, the cheers down in Parc Fermé as well. So celebrations everywhere you look, I'm sure. As the P1 board is raised, and P1's all the way in the air. So with the rain continuing to fall, it was the 69 of Mahosa who took victory on countback. So he led at the last completed point by nearly 4 tenths of a second. And you can just see BG12 on the pit board there at the other side of Parc Fermé. Of course, every class, including the ETC, their thoughts remain with Borja Gomez's family and friends. But a great result for Fernando Mahosa. 3rd in the championship now, 83 points. Really becoming the championship contender in 2025. As I'm sure Alex Longarella will have something to cheer about, and they do indeed, and there is the pit board. But Longarella, of course, a difficult race 1, difficult weekend, of course, but in race 1, got caught up in the incident from Cano. Nothing deliberate, just one of those things. Cano was trying to save a crash, and it meant no points were scored. So P2, solid 20 points after that one. Well, Alvaro Lucas, P3, another podium here at Magny-Cours. Still 2nd right now in the championship. So Spaniard, what does the next round hold at Aragon? We're not going to have to wait too long to find out. So photos for social media, photos for the press releases as well, I'm sure. And then they'll be speaking to Jack in just a few moments' time down in Parc Fermé before they head up on their podium and get their trophies. And then, of course, that will bring an end to ETC's weekend of action. But a little replay here from the 49 having an incident. That was Rodriguez having his crash as exiting the final corner. The number 13, high-siding out of turn 17. And while just trying to get up straight away before he stopped moving. And that, of course, we did have the red flag coming out. But there is Bahosa over the line. He will go, of course. At that point, he didn't know he would be victory because of that lap. But now, of course, we can hear from our race winner as Bahosa joins Jack down in pit lane.
Fernando Bahosa, an incredible race out there in ETC Race 2. Just talk us through it from your perspective.
Yeah, it was an incredible race in tricky conditions, but I'm not happy because I lose a friend and I want to keep sorry all the family, keep working, and this is the sport, but I'm not really happy. It's good for the championship because this weekend I have a lot of points, P4 and P1, and yeah, finally this, no more. And thanks for my team and all the people support me.
And just quickly in Spanish for your fans.
No estoy contento como debería estarlo porque hemos perdido un amigo en este deporte tan injusto, pero bueno, hay que seguir con la cabeza alta, mucho fuerza a la familia y todo, pero ha sido un fin de semana bien bueno porque hemos puntuado bastante, hemos recortado puntos al liderato después de las caídas de Jerez y nada, seguir trabajando, muchas gracias al equipo y seguir así.
Thank you very much.
As we look at highlights from ETC Race 2. From the start, it was Bahosa who took the lead. Dramandipa, once again, a solid start from your Race 1 winner. Then Alvaro Lucas, he was on the attack in the opening stages. And not to forget the 81 of Gabarini, started from pole. He did drop down the order in the opening couple laps, struggling to adapt to the wet conditions. Longarella, though, began his fight with Ramandipa as Lucas made this incredible move down at turn 15. Managed to get the bike stopped and, well, make the move stick. Cano continued his way up the field as well. We did have a crash further down the order for the Australia rider. The battle did continue at the front, though, and it was the 69 from the 45 who began to trade places on circuit. Slipstream proved to be crucial on the circuit between turn 3 and turns 5. The ETC riders were flat out and making moves work and making moves stick, which soon would be proved to be crucial. It was wide, though, from Longarella at turn 1, and Bahosa straight up the inside. He went and already got the move worked and paid off before turn 3. Now, though, side by side once more. Down the back straight they went, using all of the power available of these ETC machines. And then Bahosa looking up the inside at turn 14. Managing to swoop round the outside, though, as they went into turn 15. And he was able to hold on to that margin and hold on to that advantage. Alvaro Lucas, he did lose touch of the front two, as there was a crash once more from the 49. And then we had the 13 as well, having a crash at turn 17, just on the exit as he cracked open the power. As we've seen tricky conditions out there, and the red flag coming out, eventually bringing the end to the early end to the race. But Bahosa did take victory by 0.4 of a second. So it's time for the podium for the ETC Race 2. Alvaro Lucas will be first out into his position for Longarella out on the podium as well. And actually, Longarella just realising that he did go in the wrong positions on the podium. So right positions now, second and third, as Bahosa stands on the top set. Touching words, of course, down in Parc Fermé. An emotional weekend for the number 69 and the entire JuniorGP paddock. As I'm sure he'll dedicate this one, as well the rest of the podium. So Longarella receives his trophy as P1 Fernando Barroso now receives it. Punches the air, a smile on the face, and now the Spanish national anthem.
Voilà, en espagnol pour célébrer ce triplé, cette belle victoire de Fernando Barroso. Guys, stay on the podium just for the picture, please. Okay, come on the first step. Thank you.
So the photos now being taking place on the podium to end the European Talent Cups weekend here at Magny-Cours. They'll make their way off the podium, and then they'll have a rest after 2 races on Sunday. Both of them spring up unpredictable results. But looking at the race 2 results this time around, it is going to be Fernando Barroso who took victory by nearly 4 tenths of a second over Alex Longarella. Alvaro Lucas takes P3, with Ramadipa Rostanghi in P4 and 5, as Carlos Cano finished in P6, with Travis Borg in TV and TF finishing in P9. Now, of course, fighting his way from the back of the field, Gabarini, your pole sitter, finished down in P10, with Gutierrez, Carpuchin and San Juan rounding out the top 13. And a good result as well for down the order, as well as Borelli rounded out the top 15. Evan Botsberger took 16th position, just missing out on some points. Rounding out the top 20 was Almeida this time around. But a close field at the front of the race. Battles all the way down as well. Typical European Talent Cup action all the way throughout. Of course, we did have a few riders crashing out, including Beluzio Sanchez, Mario Landa as well. But that will bring an end to the ETC action, with Alex Longarella leaving the weekend with a 10-point advantage over Alvaro Lucas. Barroso up into P3 now for him, ahead of Ramadipa, who now drops to P4. Carlos Cano remains P5. 32 points, though, he has to bridge, with Gutierrez, Carpuchin, Borg, and Kratovil in P9. Travis Borg, another gainer. Izan Rodriguez now dropping back down to P10. Obviously, Gabarini, pole sitter, more points on the board. Another top 10 finish for the Italian. Now up to P11 ahead of the TV. Mario Landa as well, dropping back down to P13 in standings following his crash. And Rostanghi up into P19. So 10 spots made in the championship order this time around. 13 points in total so far in 2025 for the Frenchman. But another unforgettable race 2. And a difficult weekend for the ETC riders as well. That will bring an end to their action. Alex Longarella did take victory, and well, he ends race 2 as the winner.